Okay, do over. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about basically how to get your system to run Skyrim heavily modded and get a decent frame rate. Um, and there's a few basic things that I recommend, especially if you're running. We're going to be talking about ENB and we're going to be talking about DLSS as far as PureDark's upscaler. We're going to be talking about things like that. But more than that, we're going to be talking about um, doubling up settings or how not to double up on settings. That is the most important thing that I've found because you've got different layers that the image needs to go through. It's going to start off at the graphics driver itself. Now let's take a look at, I'm running Nvidia, so let's take a look at my Nvidia control panel. And what you're going to notice here, actually, can we make this bigger? No, doesn't want to get bigger. Okay, well, we're going to take a look at it just like this then. Um, a lot of different things that games will use, whether it's anisotropic filtering or anti-aliasing or ambient occlusion, these can happen at the driver level, they can happen at the game level, or they can happen at the post-process level. Okay, so you have basically three different tiers where these processes can happen. And so I think the first thing I want to do is I want to set my driver. A lot of these in my game are going to be handled by ENB because I'm running ENB. So I don't want to double up because every process that's running requires a certain amount of frame rate. You know, whether it's 2 frames a second or 7 frames a second or whatever, that it's going to zap off of your top, off your total for every process you have running that's a shader or something like that, or anti-aliasing. Okay, so if you have anti-aliasing happening at the driver level and you have it happening at the game level and you have it happening in ENB, you're now paying 3 times the price for the same output. Okay, so it's not going to change the image that you're getting, but every one of these is going to take, say, 5 frames a second. So instead of it only zapping 5 frames a second, if you only have one process doing it, you're spending 15 frames per second to get the same output. So hopefully that makes sense. So what we want to do is we want to strip the driver pretty much of everything because we're either going to handle it at the game level or we're going to handle it at the EMB level. All right, we're streamlining. That's what we're doing. So you want to be basically use the advanced 3D settings in this first little tab here. So we're going to go to manage 3D settings. Um, but I think even before we do that, we want to set up G-Sync. If you have G-Sync available, make sure it's enabled for windowed and full screen mode and for the monitor. I have 2 monitors, so it's actually enabled on my main monitor here. And that's how you want to set it up. Make sure that's set up. The other thing that you want to do is you want to come, this thing right here says developer. All right, so if you go into help and you go into, which one is it? Okay, it's under desktop, enable developer settings. Turn that on. And the reason we're going to turn that on is we're going to be using Resizable BAR. And I'll show you how to check if you can enable it in your system. So if we come here to help and we come here to system information, it'll pull up the system information. And it tells me right here that it says Resizable BAR yes. So that lets me know that I have a compatible motherboard and a compatible processor to run Resizable BAR. So and what that is it means that it's going to allow the CPU to access all of the GPU in one chunk rather than 256-bit bytes, right? Which means faster data transfer from the CPU to the GPU, which means higher frame rate, okay? So if you have it, enable it. And it may be a setting in your BIOS that you need to enable to turn it on. But this will tell you if it's turned on in the BIOS, and then I'll show you how to turn it on outside of that. So that's why we want the developer settings on. We want G-Sync turned on. Now we're going to go to manage 3D settings. Again, we don't want to double up. So ambient occlusion, we're going to turn off. Image scaling is turned off. Actually, we want to go to program settings because we're going to do the specific for Skyrim. So here's the Elder Scrolls Skyrim is what I have in program. And I have anisotropic filtering is turned off. Anti-aliasing FXAA is turned off. Gamma correction I'm leaving on. Anti-aliasing I've got turned off. These are things that are going to happen at either the game level or at ENB level. So I don't want to double up, right? And then I'm limiting my background applications to 30 frames a second. This is kind of important because there's going to be things, Windows processes that run in the background. And even things like Steam, right? You want to limit those to give your game more headroom, right? So limit those to 30 frames a second. As far as CUDA GPUs, you want all of them, but you can actually choose your specific GPU, and it'll just say all. Ray. How Nico leaving the leg for you? Okay, next time. Okay. Have a good one, Ray. Thanks. Low latency mode, I recommend putting that on ultra. Max frame rate, you can set that here, or you can set that in BethINI, or you can set that in, I use a mod called Display Tweaks. I recommend all of them. Do them all. The monitor technology is G-Sync compatible, or G-Sync if you have it available. MFAA, turn it off. OpenGL compatibility, you can turn it to prefer performance. Basically, we're going to turn everything here to performance, right? OpenGL, I've got my graphics card. Prefer maximum performance for power management mode. The only time you wouldn't want to do that is if you're running on a laptop to change your power management mode, because that's going to run your battery dead in nothing flat. But you don't really want to play a really heavily modded Skyrim on a laptop anyway. I mean, if you're putting 1,000 mods in there, best to have a tower and have it plugged in. Or at least if your laptop, have it plugged in. All right. As far as the refresh rate, highest available. Texture filtering, anisotropic samples are on. I'm allowing negative LOD bias. I have it on high performance for texture filtering. I have it on trilinear optimization, say that 6 times fast. Trilinear optimization is turned on. Threaded optimization is turned on. Triple buffering is turned on. And VSync I'm also going to turn on, but I'm going to turn it on what's called fast. Because like I said, if you're running G-Sync, it actually runs smoother G-Sync, VSync combined. Okay, so that's how I'm setting up my driver to begin with. That's step one. The next thing we're going to set is game setting, right? Remember, there's 3 different levels where these settings happen. They happen at the driver, they happen at the game level, and then they happen in the ENB. So I'm using BethINI and click OK to open Nexus page. You can download the latest version. Hey, why not? Let's download the latest version. So on my other screen, I've got it up there. Standalone, extract anywhere. We're going to manually download it. And then I'm going to actually open it up. I'm going to extract it to my desktop. So we're probably going to need to close this down so that we can, okay, this is the standalone. So what I really want to do is I just want to replace the one that I have. So I think I have that in program files, BethINI standalone. So I have a preset. Oops. Okay. So let's see what we got in here. That has an icon. Well, I'm just going to grab all that and drag it and drop it right in there. This is how we do it. And replace the files. Okay, so the only thing that didn't change is the ini file and the icon, but that's an older icon. All right. I can get rid of that. Let's run it. All right, so okay, to open the Nexus page, you can download the, I just did. Okay. Yeah, I just freaking did that, peoples. Okay, whatever. Anyhow, what you can do here is make sure your resolution is set where you want it. I turn off windowed mode because I'm handling those things through display tweaks and also through DLSS upscaler from PureDark. All right, I do not recommend using the VSync. Hey, good afternoon. It's morning for me, but good afternoon wherever you are. You're probably on the East Coast. I don't recommend using the VSync that comes with the game, and I have it turned on at the driver level, so I turn it off here. I do have the 64-bit render targets turned on. I'm running borderless. I don't have anti-aliasing turned on here because I'm going to handle it through PureDark's upscaler. Has a really good form of anti-aliasing built into it. So I don't want to double up on effects, so I don't have it turned on here. I do recommend hitting recommended tweaks and setting it to ultra. And also knowing kind of where your bottleneck is. So I know, let's turn that off, turn that to none. Detail, I leave pretty much all of this where it's at. I turn off ambient occlusion here because again, it's going to be happening at the post-process level. So I don't want to do it at the game level and at the post-process level. Yes, Norman, and I'm making, this is specifically a tutorial stream. So you can go back and watch this anytime you want to, but I'm talking about not doubling up effects and basically how to strip your driver down, strip the game engine down of things that are happening in ENB and other post-process things like DLSS, um, PureDark shader, stuff like that. I turn off the screen space reflections also because that's going to be happening in ENB. So anything that ENB is taking care of, I'm turning off here. But as far as tree shadows and land shadows, I leave on. Um, I leave the decals on because I like blood, right? Okay. I turn off lens flare because it looks weird. I turn off the anamorphic lens flare, again, because it looks weird. I leave depth of field turned on because I need it for the underwater effect in my ENB. So that's why I leave it on. Okay, and I do turn on interior God rays because I like it. And basically I set mine for ultra, right? And I found out that my bottleneck really isn't my graphics. Um, my bottleneck is it's a CPU bottleneck or a draw call limit. So it's either CPU that's slowing me down or it's API, which would be DirectX 11, that can only handle right around 10,000 draw calls before it starts to slow down. It can't handle any more information than that. So I crank all these up because that's not where my bottleneck is. So you really need to figure out where your bottleneck is happening. And I'll show you how to do that too. And then as far as visuals, my grass I run at 65. The higher the number, the less dense the grass. And then I run the diversity at 15. You can check with your grass mod that you're running and it'll tell you where you should probably set it for whatever grass mod that you're using. I pretty much leave all this where it's at: dynamic trees, tree animations, skin trees, BethINI ultra setting, and far off tree distance at the ultra setting also. I do leave projected UVs on, but I turn off the improved shader. Okay, and that's the only other thing that I do here is in the display section, and this is completely optional, but I'm looking for the wind. Oh my gosh, where is it at? There it is. So it's iWind grass multiplier, and I have mine set at 4. And what this will do is instead of the grass just doing this, it's going to be more affected by the wind. So you can actually change that in your INI if you wanted to. And then we're going to close this. It's going to ask me if I want to save it. I want to say yes. Okay, so now we're done with both the driver and we're done with BethINI. The next thing to really look at is, I told you we were looking at turning on Resizable BAR, right? So we need to go and get a program. It's called Nvidia Inspector, okay? Nvidia Profile Inspector. Parry deflection mechanic in your game? Yes, I do. Through Valhalla Combat and through Precision. So between those two, that handles parry deflection. So we don't want to do the, well, we can do the global driver. We can turn it on globally. This is for Resizable BAR. What you're looking for is you're looking for rebar, these 3 settings right here, okay? And make sure that the first one is set to enabled, the second one is set to 1, and the third one is set to 4. And then apply these changes. Now, this is if you have a rebar enabled motherboard and processor and graphics card. So it basically it'll tell you right in your BIOS. So there are some good tutorials from Pangino. If you look up Pangino rebar on YouTube, he can walk you through how to turn it on. That's where I learned. And it's really simple to do, and you can have this resizable bar for pretty much any game, right? And what it means is faster data transfer between the CPU and the GPU. It can access more of the memory. It can access all of the memory at once rather than in bytes. So it'll run faster, which means more frame rate. Okay, cool. So the next thing we want to look at now that we've done, again, the driver, we've done the game engine, which is BethINI, we've turned on rebar, we've turned on G-Sync. So we want to look at in our game files, and I highly recommend you use this if you're not using it already, display tweaks. Great little SKSE. And I use it mainly because I wanted to uncap my frame rate. And I run in widescreen format. So come to Data SKSE plugins and find display tweaks. It'll be under SSE display tweaks and find the INI. So The way I have mine set up is adjust game settings true. Okay, full screen is set to false. And the reason for that is PureDark's DLSS upscaler. He tells you to turn full screen to false. He tells you borderless is still true, but borderless upscale is set to false. So this one is important, full screen false, borderless upscale false. You need to turn both of those to false to run PureDark's upscaler. Okay, I do have my resolution set here, but these are commented out. I'm not scaling it down through, you can scale it down through display tweaks, but it won't sharpen the image. And that's why I use PureDarks, because it will scale it down and then use DLSS to upscale it with anti-aliasing and sharpening. Okay, so basically that's all you need to do here. Enable VSync, I have true, because I'm using G-Sync and VSync. This would be at the driver level again, not at the game level. Actually, I think that is the game level. We want to turn that false. That was wrong. Okay. So preset interval, I have it 1. Tearing, I turned off. Okay, cool. Because we're running. Okay, save that. The other one, PureDark's upscaler. So we're going to start the game up because that's all I need to do outside of the game to get it ready. So strip the driver, strip down BethINI, let ENB handle the lion's share of everything. Another thing, and turn on Resizable BAR if you have it enabled or if you have it available with your hardware. And also turn on G-Sync if you have a G-Sync available monitor. Those are all important. Also use display tweaks. It's great. All right, so now that's the baseline. Another thing I wanted to show you is a program called Process Lasso. And what this will do is it tells me every process that I have running on my system right now. And I can set affinity and priority. So priority is it normal, is it high, is it below normal, above normal, whatever, okay. And then affinity is, okay, what cores is it using? And I have a 10 core, 20 thread processor that I'm running. I run the i9 10850, so it's a 10 series processor. Okay. Um, if you need to find out what your processor is, and what anything else is, I highly recommend a couple of programs here. This one's called CPU ID, and it's free. Download it, get it. If you don't know what your processor is, this will tell you everything you need to know about your processor, about your RAM, about another thing is to make sure in your BIOS that you have your RAM's XMP enabled. Okay. But anyhow, that's what this is. This will tell me what processor I'm running, how many cores it has, what speed it's running at, all of that. This is the SPID for my system RAM. So it'll tell me what it's capable of running at, the timings and everything else. It'll also tell me about my graphics card. It'll tell me about my motherboard. It'll tell me about all of that. You know, with your motherboard, in order to enable rebar, you may need to do a BIOS update. Again, I refer you to Pangino. Check him out. Um, he'll tell you what's required and how to do it. Okay, CPU-Z is a good way to take a look at it though. Another one that I also highly recommend is, I know it doesn't play nice with MO2, but I use MSI Afterburner and Riva Tuner. This program right here, like I said, is called Process Lasso. There's a free version you can get. I have the paid version, so I have part of it off the screen because it has my real name on it, and I didn't want to put that on the to stream here. But this will tell you every process, and you can go into anything that's here, let's say Firefox, right? And let's change the affinity of Firefox. So let's look at the current. I am not using Core 2 or Core 4. So 0, 1, 3, 5. So Core 2 and Core 4 are logical cores. These 3 and 5 are virtual. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Um, and setting the priority, it says it's got normal priority. And the main thing is you want to set Skyrim at a high priority when it's running. And you want to basically set the affinity so that it has, it's pretty much its own cores. So 0, 2, and 4 are specific to Skyrim. So if you notice all these, they'll go 0, 1, 3, 5, 0, 1, 3, 5 to 19. Okay, I set all those so that 2 and 4 are only being used by Skyrim. So I have cores, since Skyrim is a single-threaded process, it doesn't take advantage of multi-threading. I wanted to make sure that there was cores not being used by any other process, that Skyrim could have full use of the entire core. That's what process lasso is good for. Okay, and you can get a program or a mod called Skyrim Priority that you can set the affinity and priority for Skyrim itself, but Process Lasso can do it for everything that's running on your system. Okay, and it does take a little bit of reading, does take a little bit of setting up, but once you get it set up, um, and some things like system, you want to leave on all cores and normal priority. You don't want to turn those down, right? Also, DWM is another one you want to leave on all cores and on high priority. Okay. Um, that's the display manager for Windows. So you can look those things up if you need to. Um, I think we're done with all of that. Let's fire up the game and we'll take a look at ENB. And we'll also take a look at how do we tell where our bottleneck is, right? So we're going to look at a couple different locations in game and go, okay, well, where exactly is our bottleneck? Is our bottleneck happening at the API, DirectX 11? Is it a draw call limit? Is it happening at the CPU? Am I running too many skin mesh physics stuff? Like if I'm in a town and I've got 40 NPCs around me, all with skin mesh physics going on, and my frame rate drops to, 15. Okay, so I know that's a CPU bottleneck because that's where skin mesh physics are happening, right? Or am I using 100% of my processor, but my frame rate is still low? Okay, that would be a GPU bottleneck. And with most of the GPUs out now, you're going to find that anything 3000 series, 4000 series, and anything the later versions of AMD, you're going to find your bottleneck is mostly your CPU and your API because it's a DirectX 11 game. DirectX 12 can handle more draw calls. So, and draw calls are pretty much okay. Um, exactly what it says, draw calls. So we need to draw something and we're calling for it. We need to grab this piece of information. We're calling for this piece of information. So that's the way to think about it. So the more things you have on your screen, the more draw calls you have. And it's like, think about it like a freeway, okay? You only have so many lanes on your freeway. And when you fill up all those lanes, what do you got? You got a traffic jam. And what does that do? It slows down traffic. It slows down the transfer of information between CPU, GPU, and RAM and SSD. All right, so your system is only as fast as its slowest component. That's another thing to remember, right? So you might have the best graphics card you can buy. You've got the 4090 overclocked and, with the big massive cooler on it, or you're running liquid nitrogen or whatever. Okay, cool. But if you have a processor that can't keep up with it, it's not going to perform at its peak, right? Or if you have RAM that can't keep up with it, it's not going to perform at its peak. So what you need to do is you need to balance all of these things. So it becomes a balancing act, right? And we're going to turn on, this is MSI Afterburner with Riva Tuner. And I'm looking at, okay, the GPU is running at 63 degrees Celsius at 81% usage. And my CPU is running at 31% usage now, but you got to remember that Skyrim is a single-threaded process, and I am running a processor that has 20 total threads and 10 logical cores. So if I'm running at 30% and Skyrim's only using one core, or maybe two, right? Partially two cores. Um, that would fill up, okay, 2 out of 10, that's 1/5. So if I'm using 31%, I'm actually filling up the cores that Skyrim is using are pretty much 100% usage. So this would be, my CPU is tacked out. But I have my frame rate locked at 75 frames per second. So it doesn't really matter. And 75 is really smooth. If I run at anything over 75, because of I'm running a mod movement behavior overhaul, and it will T-pose my character. She'll be walking around with her arms sticking straight out, right? If I run at anything over 75 frames a second is what I found. So I just lock my frame rate at 75 and I run with that, and that's really smooth on interiors. Okay, so we're actually going to cruise back out of here because we're going to find a place where we can show you what a CPU bottleneck looks like, what a GPU bottleneck looks like, and what an API draw call bottleneck looks like. So that's what we're going to look at so you guys can see what that looks like. Now, if you're running MO2, like I said, it doesn't like MSI Afterburner and Riva Tuner. So there are other ways to see this information. And if you're running an Nvidia graphics card, if you open up Alt-Z and you go to Performance, you should be able to, where do I turn on that? Okay, Performance Overlay is Alt-R. That's what I needed to know. Okay, so if I go Alt-R, then I can have my performance overlay up here in the corner, and it's going to tell me what my CPU utilization is, GPU utilization, the latency. That's this number down here at 13.3. Okay, so this is giving me, that's a render latency, and it's giving me my frames per second, right? You can set this up to give you whatever information you need. All right, if you can't use Riva Tuner. So that's an alternate. And unfortunately, I have, we just waited for an hour because I have R set up as also my wait.
Quiet now.
So let's go out here and let's bottleneck it, baby, and take a look at it. And as far as I know, my bottleneck is not my graphics, and I'll tell you why. If the graphic is not running at 100% usage, if my GPU, so if you look at the top line on the upper left-hand corner, you see right now it's 94%, 96%, so it's not at 100%. So what's slowing it down is either API, right, draw calls, or CPU. Can't get the information fast enough to the graphics card for it to run at 100% usage. So if you ever see your GPU is not running at 100% usage, it's either the API or the CPU that's slowing it down. Hopefully that makes sense. Because it can't get the information to it fast enough for it to run at 100%. But yeah, if I'm running 50 to 60 frames a second with over 1,000 mods installed and a full ENB and reshade, I'm pretty happy, right? That's pretty darn smooth. Even if it drops into the 40s, it's not bad. Okay, so here we're running at 98% usage, 96% usage, 26% CPU usage. We're using 13 gigs worth of VRAM and about 16 gigs worth of system RAM. Not bad, 50 frames a second. If I turn off, hey.
My moment.
Hey. We're taking
Who are you
out,
trying
buddy.
to impress?
All right, don't be sneaking up on me like that. I'm trying to do a tutorial here. All right. So let's find, we're going to just look around until it drops. I think in the mod EFPS, I had to use a program to add CPU performance and avoid the 1 and 3 core, I think. EFPS is different. EFPS is putting occlusion planes inside of buildings and things like that. Now, Dying-to-Lod, a lot of people are like, oh, Dying-to-Lod kills my performance. Dying-to-Lod will create a mesh under the world. Okay? And I can show you that. Let's take a look at that. So we're going to toggle fly cam. And we're going to fly under the world. So, if you notice, there's nothing under this. So it's creating an underside mesh. And it's not going to render anything below that. This is the actual ground. That's the actual ground. Now we're between the ground and the underside mesh. Okay. So that's what Dying-to-Lod can do for you. It can make this the underside mesh under the mountains and everything else, so that first off, light won't travel through a mountain. That's kind of immersion breaking, right? When the light is behind the mountain, but it's still shining on the ground. Okay. Mods like roguelike encounters that generate multiple ESP, how to transform them to 1. I wouldn't really worry about transforming them to 1, and I'll tell you why. You can convert them to an ESPFE or an ESL. And it would take 4,096 ESLs to equal 1 ESP. It's a hex, right? So that's why you can have so many mods installed. The limit is 254. Technically 255, but you can't have 255. You can only have 254 masters and ESPs. So what you do is you convert as many ESPs as you can to ESL or ESPFE, right? And what that will do is all of those combined will only equal 1 ESP file in your load order. That's how you do it. So don't worry about the number of them. Worry about whether they're a light plugin or a regular plugin or master. And we can show you how to do that too here in a minute. But I want to find an area. Actually, in the snow, I get pretty decent frame rate. Let's we're going to take a little flight here. And we're going to get a little bit higher off the ground, and we're going to go somewhere where it's pretty heavy. Let's go somewhere where there's a lot of trees. So yeah, I know that in roguelike encounters, none of them were converted to ESL, but I converted a lot of them myself. And like I said, I'll show you how to do that. But we're gonna fly over to an area that's a lot heavier. So here we're running, so it said 98 or 88%. I need a lot of trees. I'm running sun helm, so I can't fast travel. So apparently we're getting cold, I think. All right, so we're gonna go diving down in here. This is a pretty heavy area. This is outside of Whiterun, and I've added just a ton of trees.
What was that?
Huh?
All right. So let's find a really heavy area. Tell you what we're gonna do. Let's set game hour to 10. All right, that way we can have a little bit of light. So let's get over here. And so we're running at like 95 to 97%. I know there's a really heavy area over here by the road, by the Western Watchtower, so we're going to go over there. I only have a few heavy areas in my game that I've kind of just said, okay, I'm going to get lower frame rate here. So here we're at like 47, 48, 49. Which still isn't that bad, but going this way we're down into the, low 40s. So we're looking at like 89%, 88% usage, right, on the GPU if you look at the top in the corner. So it's not getting information fast enough to work at 100% usage. And so we look at our CPU and we see it's running at 31%. So it's probably filling up that core. But we could actually probably check that out. I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our ENB. Let's turn this off so we can see. And we're going to open up I think it's under Profiler. Okay, so we're only running about 9,700 draw calls. Another big question I saw one time, a mod that lets you preview NPC faces, resolve conflicts in case you have more than one mod changes its face. I don't know which one that is. If I want to preview their face, I do it in the creation kit. So we're almost at the limit of what DirectX 11 can do. We're at about 9,700 draw calls. So let's look at our. Tell you what we're going to do. We're not going to do the big one, but we're going to turn. Where's our FPS? And let's make it a little bit bigger so people can see it. Okay. So now you can see the FPS up in the corner. Still, if I'm running right around 50, I'm not going to complain too much. I did get a drop right there on the load. And then let's change it to first person view. So we're still at 48, 49. So it's not an SMP, HTT SMP issue. I'm guessing it's a draw call issue. So again, we look at this. Here we're at 83 now, but we're up at around 50 frames a second. And then let's go far enough or turn around and see, okay, so what's our draw calls looking that way where it's down to 44. So here we're at 11,000 draw calls. Again, once you get over 10,000 draw calls here, that's when it's going to start slowing down. And the reason is because I have like 5 different tree mods installed and lots of flora and just lots of things that need to be rendered looking this direction. Now, if I could put occlusion planes, I was talking about EFPS, right? It uses occlusion planes. If I could put them inside the trees, that would help, because then it wouldn't render anything behind the tree, right? So I wish I could figure out how to put occlusion planes in the trees and have them spawn with an occlusion plane in it. That would really help the frame rate. So this is one heavy area. Another heavy area that I know of would be on the bridge looking at
Quiet.
Riverwood. So let's go there. And let's see if that's a draw call limit or if that's something else. Let's change the weather and see where we're going. There we go. Now I know where I'm at. So it's, what I would say is figure out, okay, where's my bottleneck? Is it GPU? Is it CPU? Is it API? Those are generally where your bottlenecks are going to be. So here I'm running, 55, that way 60. This is where it's bad. And it'll drop all the way down to 34 frames a second. So let's look at what the draw calls are. And I'm guessing it's going to be, yeah, we're up over 11,000 draw calls here. And this is because I'm running Nature of the Wild Lands, Ulenwald, CG4. I'm running an overhaul for Riverwood. So all of these things, even what I can't see, it's rendering everything that's in the screen, right? That's not behind an occlusion plane. So occlusion planes can help out with the draw calls. And they can help out because you're not rendering as many things. So this is probably the worst spot in the whole game for me. And let's see, okay, well, let's turn that off, and let's turn off ENB. So even with ENB turned off, I'm only running 40 frames a second. So that's why I have my ENB cranked all the way up, because that's not my bottleneck. I'm still at 37 frames a second with the ENB turned off. So let's turn off Reshade. And that's only 1 frame a second different. Reshade is now turned off. If we look at it, it's turned off. Okay? So let's turn back on. So we're 37 frames a second. Turn ENB back on. I'm at 33. So I'm losing 4 frames a second for a full ENB. That's not my bottleneck. The bottleneck here is draw calls. So, and there's not much I can do about the API except remove items from what's being rendered. And when I think about what's being rendered, you have to think about also how many polygons, right? So we can actually look at that. We can visualize the wireframe, right? And yeah, that is a butt ton of polygons. So looking this way, it's not bad. I'm 72 frames a second. But as soon as I look this way, I'm rendering everything that's behind this. So if I toggle the fly cam, right, and I go straight up, this is what that's where my character is down there, right? That's what it's trying to render. You see this big old pile of triangles on these trees? Oh my God. Now they look fantastic, but it's going to render everything that's in my view. It's rendering all this stuff over here too. And Look at all the polygons on the rocks. Okay, so I'm using Majestic Mountains with improved collision. So yeah, I have a lot of polygons spent on trees and rocks. And that's what's going to basically slow down my API, slow down DirectX 11. It's going to have trouble loading all that information. The buildings aren't so bad, right? But if I look at, even the ivy's not so bad. Those are flat plains. But let's look at some rocks on the walls. Okay, so these aren't so bad either. But I think it's plants and trees is what's slowing my game down. So then it comes to, okay, here's the balancing act, right? Do I want to give up some of those trees and some of those plants to get a better frame rate? Or do I just, no, I'll turn on the shader window, turn off the wireframe. Okay, cool. Or am I willing to deal with 40 frames a second coming into Riverwood? To get the kind of graphics I'm getting. So that's the trade-off. That's the balancing act. Okay. First, figure out where your bottleneck is once you've stripped everything down and you're only doing the effects one time, right? And then, okay, where's my bottleneck? Is it the API draw calls? Is it the CPU? Like I'm got too many skin mesh physics things happening in the background. That's the biggest one. But you can kind of tweak that using faster HTTP. You can go in there and tweak that in an XML file. Or is it the graphics card just can't keep up? So what piece of my system is the slowest one that's holding everything back? And then you can mod with that information in mind and get a game that's at least playable at 45 plus frames a second, but for the most part with an average around 50 to 55, right? Which is still pretty smooth. And for an open world RPG like this with this much content crammed in there, that you're doing pretty good. You're doing pretty good. It's even playable still at like 43. But again, if I'm here, I know this isn't, let's turn this back on, right? Okay. So my graphics card's only running at 62%. What does that tell you? It's either API or CPU. It's not getting the information fast enough to the graphics card. So it's not my graphics card that's slowing me down. And buying a better graphics card isn't going to give me any more frame rate, right? That's the other thing. Big misconception. People are like, oh, if I could only afford a 4090 and slap it into my system, I'd get great frame rate. Not true. It depends on what's the slowest part of your system. So I think nobody ever teaches people how to really look at it and go, okay, where is my bottleneck? What is the slowest part? And that's the secret. That right there is the secret. Okay. So we're actually going to quit out of this. Hopefully it doesn't drop my stream because I want to go over how to create an ESL file. Okay. So we're going to play around a little bit in SSE edit to answer Norman's question about roguelike encounters and all those ESPs. So keep your fingers crossed. Hope it don't crash, right? OBS when I close this out. All right. So we're going to close that out. Hopefully it says excellent connection. So we'll see. We'll see if that holds true. I'm going to give it a second. I'm going to keep an eye on that. All right. So we're going to open up another window here. we're going to go and we're going to open up SSE edit. All right. And we're going to wait for this thing and say close. It's going to load all of our plugins. So load everything. And we're going to be making ESLs, right? We're going to be looking for anything we can turn to an ESL. And I've turned most everything I can turn to an ESL already, but I'm sure I'll find something we can work on. So we're letting it load, and we're loading, and we're loading. All right, where's my mouse? I have trouble seeing it. There it is. Okay, so we said okay, everything's loaded. So you're going to right click anywhere on this side, and you're going to go down to apply script. And then you're going to find the one that says find ESP plugins which can be turned to ESL. That's the script you're looking for. And then you're going to say okay. And it will go through. SSE Edit is a very powerful program. I feel like I'm watching a master class here. Really appreciate this info. Oh, no problem. No problem. Hopefully it helps you enjoy your game better. That's what it's all about, right? That's what our whole community is about. Whether it's me, whether it's Jag, whether it's Ireshot, whether it's Ray Ray, okay. All of us crazy Skyrim people, for lack of a better term, um, want our game to play really great and to be fun and have a good time, but we also want to share any information that we've learned along the way so that other people can do the same thing. We're not going to hide information behind a paywall. I don't hide my mods behind a paywall. Okay, everything it's free, forever free. You've already bought the game. You don't have to give me any money. I'm retired. I have enough to pay my bills, and that's all I care about, right? I'm not broke. I'm not rich, but I'm not broke. So that's good, right? And I can go out for sushi every now and then, which is nice too. So anyhow, all of these are loaded and it's giving me a list here of everything. So right here is a list and it says synthesis, Nico's repair file. So if I'm reading this right here, it says Nico's repair file can be turned to ESL by adding ESL flag to the TES4 header. Now I don't want to turn that one to, that's what you're looking for. I don't want to turn, okay, here's one that I can do. So this is Kanji's Torag's Warhorn Replacer. And it says the same thing. Can be turned into ESL by adding ESL flag to the TES4 header. So that's exactly what we're going to do. The first thing here, CE, that's giving me the load order, where it is in the load order. So we're going to come down here and we're going to find CE, that's D, D, CA, CC, what am I looking for? CE, CD, CE, Kanji's, Torag's Warhorn Replacer. And we're going to hit the little plus symbol and open it up. And then we're going to go to the file header, right? So right here where it says record flags, we're going to right click on that and choose edit. And it's going to give you a warning, but we've already checked and make sure that we already ran the script and it told us all we need to do is put the flag on it. We don't need to compact form IDs or anything like that, just needs the flag. So we're sure, we're going to say yes. And then it gives you this, and you're going to go to ESL and you're going to put a little check mark right there by ESL and you're going to say okay. Hey, look at that. We just changed an ESP to an ESL and opened up another slot that we can add another mod to, right? So let's go back to messages. So down here on the bottom, click on messages. We've already done kanjis, right? Where is that? So that was this one. So we just did that one. So we can do the one that's right above it. It's called Bone Walker. And it says the same thing. Can be turned to ESL by adding ESL flag to the TES4 header. So let's find Bone Walker. There it is. Hit the little plus symbol, go to File Header, go to Record Flags, right click, Edit, ESL, OK, done deal. Now it's an ESL file. OK, back to messages. Let's look at the next one. The next one is Race Menu Morphs. Says the same thing, can be turned to ESL by adding ESL flag to the TES4 header. And it is CC. So we come up here, these are all FEs, there's CC. Do the same thing again. Edit, ESL, OK. So we just turned 3 ESPs into ESLs. And that opened up 2 more ESP slots that we could add more mods to. Okay, because like I said, you need basically 4,096 ESLs to equal 1 ESP. So you could potentially have an unlimited number of mods as long as you can get them all to play nice together. Okay, that's the other thing, conflicts, right? So let's go back to messages. Do we have anything else we can do here? Okay, these here that say can be turned to ESL by compacting form IDs first, then adding ESL flag to TES4 header. Okay, when it says compacting form IDs, you need to understand that if it's loaded on your save game and you compact the form IDs, so basically if I saved my game and this mod was active in my load order, and then I compact the form IDs, and then I try to reload that save, it'll break it, okay? Because it's looking for form IDs that have been changed. So don't do that. It'll break your save game. So what you want to do if you want to change those to an ESL is you need to basically load a game without that plugin loaded. Okay, create a clean save without that plugin loaded, and then turn that plugin back on so that it's exit out of the game after you make the clean save. Okay, without the plugin loaded, and then load that plugin in your load order so that SSE Edit can find it, and then load up SSE Edit. Then you can compact form IDs and turn it to an ESL. And then when you reload the game, your save game doesn't have that information from that plugin. It'll be like it's adding it new. Okay, so it's not changing form IDs and it won't break your save game. Hopefully that makes sense. Clean save. It's called making a clean save. Um, and then all these that I have here, right, if I'm looking at, I don't want to do that. Oh my gosh. All right. All of these that I have here that are telling me to compact the form IDs, I could potentially turn those to ESLs by compacting the form IDs. I would just have to have a save game that did not have them loaded on the save game. Or I could compact the form IDs and start a brand new game. That's the other way to do it. Because starting a new character, it doesn't know what the form IDs are. So you're not going to break it, right? And that's what's so ones like this one, Strange Runes, pay attention to these things too. It says, warning, plugin has new cells which won't work when turned to ESL and overwritten by other mods due to game bug. So that one you never want to change. This is Strange Ruins. You never want to change that to an ESL. So read the warnings. It'll tell you. But I only have warnings on a few of them, and those are still ESPs. So I have a 3D NPC Mixwater Mill patch right here that can be turned. So it's at 7C. So let's go to 7C. Where are we at? That's 8. That's AB. I'm not sure where 7C is. Okay, that's 8B. 7E. 7D. 7C. File header, record flag, edit, ESL. Okay. And then when you close this, it'll ask if you want to save all those that I've changed. And I'm going to say yes. So now they're saved as ESLs. So if I open up, let's say, loot, and we'll run a sort on it, but they'll be marked over here with this the little light symbol, this symbol right here that says it's a light plugin. And then if I open up, let's say Rybash, so we'll close this out. We'll open Rybash. It will tell me down at the bottom, I have 931 active out of 932. So what do I not have active? Survival control panel. Hey, we need to turn that on. So now I have 932 out of 932. I have 218 ESPs and ESMs, and I have 714 ESL files. So that's what I'm running right now as far as ESPs and ESLs. All right, let's fire the game back up. Now we're going to play. Tutorial done. Now you know what you need to know. And what did that take? It only took an hour. I'm out of coffee. I'm going to go get more coffee. I'll be right back. Is it true that you also shouldn't ESP? Another mod relies on that ESP. If it's a master to another one, it would probably show up in SSE edit that you don't want to do it. You remember when I showed you Strange Runes and it said it made cell edits? That would be one, and it gave me a warning. Don't change it. It would probably give you a warning. Because I haven't had any problems just doing what I did right there. Once it say it's okay to change it, just by clicking it in the file header, because it's checking records. It loaded, and this is why I'm saying the SSE Edit is a very powerful program. Okay, it loaded every single asset from every single plugin and the original game into SSE Edit. Everything. It loaded everything. And it's cross-referencing and checking what plugin is using information from another plugin. It's looking at all of that. Okay? Very powerful program. And the same framework is also used with Dynalod. Dynalod will tell you if you have a problem with anything, right? It will tell you when you start up Dynalod, it'll go, hey, you have an item reference in this cell of this plugin, of this mod that got deleted. You have a missing item reference. It'll pinpoint them for you because it's going through every single record in the game, every single record that you've added. So when you think about my load order, which is, like I said, over 1,000 mods, 932 plugins, but over 1,000 mods altogether with all the SKSE stuff and all the texture replacers and stuff like that I put in that don't have an ESP or an ESL or an ESM file. It's going through all that information. So yeah, use it. It's freaking badass, you know. And if you can, support Elmister U. Um, and if you can, same thing for Shisen. What he's done with creating distant LOD for Skyrim is nothing short of freaking amazing, you know. And you got to think there's some really big brains that like to play Skyrim, and that's just super cool that they gave us all of these great tools and
Not a sound.
mods to work with. You know, you think about D-Star and MCO. You think about Ursh and precision and true directional movement. You think about hydrogen and HDT SMP. You think about, um, you know, the back-end tools, SSE Edit and Dynalod and BethINI and, you know, a lot of what we rely on. And you think about Boris Vorontsov and ENB, and you think about, you know, MartyMcFly and Reshade. You think about, you know, RTGI, Ray Trace Global Illumination, in a DirectX 11 game from 12 years ago. It's when you dig down deep into the meat of it, it'll blow your mind. You know, you think about um, what there is parallax that's built into the game engine, but complex parallax was it's a height map in the alpha channel of the environment map through ENB. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, that's fine. But just understand that for every texture that has a cube map, right, has reflection, cube map, you've got 4 different textures, right? You've got your diffuse texture, you've got your normal map, which is called a bump map, which will give it relief, some relief, right? And then you've got the cube map itself, which is a map that can be wrapped around a cube or wrapped around a sphere without any seams, right? When it's moved around, it won't have any seams. So that's a cube map. And then you have the cube map mask, which is your environment map. And in and then you got to figure, okay, it's an RGB and an alpha channel. And what Boris is doing is ENB is checking the alpha channel, or in this case, I think it's the red channel, the R channel of the environment map for a height map for parallax, and then applying that via post-process shader. So after the image is rendered, so post-process, right? After rendering, that's what it means. It's applying this post-process shader. So really, when you look at it like that and you realize what these people are doing, um, at the ground level of what they're doing, it'll blow your mind. It'll blow your brain out. You're like, holy shit. How are you doing that? Well, these people are like I said, some big brains. Some big brains. Okay, and I did want to talk about this too a little bit. This is DLSS, and this is the one from PureDark's Patreon. So I paid $5, worth every penny, because this one works with ENB, and it's got a built-in sharpener that sharpens the image. That's why I don't need TAA or any anti-aliasing happening at the driver level, because it's adding DLAA in with DLSS. I'm rendering this at 1995 by 835, and then it's upscaling it to my native 3440 by 1440. And I'm not getting any loss in fidelity. You know, when you look at, okay, just that's a flat texture, but yeah, the bump map on it's really good. And the detail's really good. And the texture resolution's really good. That's another thing to talk about is resolution. A lot of people are like, yeah, I want to download all these 4K textures. And I ask them, I say, okay, what's your screen resolution? You know, are you playing on a 4K screen? Are you playing on a 1080p screen? Are you playing at 1440p? These are important questions you should be asking. So if I'm looking at this pillar, for instance, and I'm getting as close to it in the game as I can, it still doesn't fill up my entire screen, right? Now my screen is 3440 wide. A 4K texture is 4096. So do I need a 4096 texture on this if it doesn't fill my entire screen? No, I won't notice the difference. But the issue is my graphics card doesn't know what screen it's attached to. So it's still going to use the horsepower to render it at 4K at 4096 by 4096, even though my screen is not able to display it. And that's going to cost you frame rate. So think about, okay, on this arrow, does this arrow need to have a 4K texture? No. Even on a 4K screen, it will never, ever fill the entire screen. It's never going to lose resolution. So it'll be perfectly fine at a 2K texture. Hop in a chat with you guys one day while you're talking about any of this. Try to pick your brain. Must be trying to keep a sleep schedule now, but I'm hooked in with all this info. Well, you know, that's why it's recorded. It's recorded so you can watch it later, right? I understand that, you know, you're in New Zealand, so that's yeah, it's probably what, middle of the morning for you. Like early? Well, you can come back and watch it later. It's okay. Right now I'm into playing the game, so that's what we're doing now. I think we're done with the tutorial. The first hour of this stream is actually a pretty good tutorial for people if they want to know. And it's marked as such. It's labeled as a tutorial. So if anybody wants to just hang out and watch the game after the tutorial, that's fine. You can go back and watch it later. Damn work. 7:30 Saturday morning. Ah, okay, well, cool. You're in the future. Because it's Friday morning for me. But it's 11:30. So that's the thing I don't get. You turn the steam on, but the pipe's broken. So how does that open the door if the pipe's broken? That's some bullshit, Carlo. That doesn't really make any sense to me, but you know, I guess I'm trying to make sense out of a nonsensical thing. Our restoration's at 50. We have something else here. Harm. We'll take that. It's magic. Uh-oh, it's magic. We're having a Cars moment. Heavy armor's at 30, blocks at 45, two-hand it's at 100, one hand it's at 82. We need to train. That's all I got to say. Let's throw a save right here. So yeah, this was set up as a tutorial. But the tutorial is in the first hour for anybody that wants to watch. We're done with the tutorial now, and now we're playing through Messenger Left and waiting for the doorbell to ring and the dogs to freak out, because they will. Oh, dead fall man. Is that the Cars tune? It's a night prowler, sleeps in the day. I'll take your Falmer arrows too. Yeah, give me all of them. Thank you. Cool. I have a lot of fun playing DJ in your in yours. What's up, Gears? Todd, how weird. Do we have a Todd, how weird in here? That's good. Oh, did you notice that? Here. Did you notice we have a warmth rating? Yeah, the underwear doesn't have any warmth. Because we changed out from I need to Sunhelm. So that's the latest change. What's up? Oh, you've been here the whole time, haven't you? Yeah, you've been here the whole time. You're just saying hi to these other peoples that are dropping in. I recommend subscribing to Ireshot also, Chaos. He would be a little later in your day. 7 hour. I actually had trouble getting to sleep last night. I don't know why. I just kind of laid in bed. And then I got to sleep. And then when my wife got up to get to work, I just got up. Started my day. Wasn't tired. You know, couldn't go back to sleep. So... wasn't tired. I kind of listened to my body. Yeah, I'm running Sunhelm now with cold as well as hunger and thirst. Actually, I kind of dig it. I wanted to add like Frostfall, but yes, I did. But it is different. Here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if I drink water, right? That's the same animation. But I don't have the animation for when I fill water and drink it. So this is probably nasty water, but we're going to try it anyway. Do we have an empty one? Because they would show up under empty. So she doesn't do the animation there. That's the difference. I need would actually do the animation there and take a drink. Now the other thing that I did want to look at, had to miss, but what was your tutorial on a little while ago? It was on basically running through the driver, BethINI, ENB, Resizable BAR, process lasso, basically how to streamline things to get the most, and then I went into, in the game, figuring out, okay, where's my bottleneck? What can I do? I have to find the slowest part of my system and then work on that and try to give it a little more headroom so that my game can run at a higher frame rate, right? So I went over all of that. So I do have cold turned on. I do have the need settings. Everything's turned on, right? This is the one I wanted to look at. I wonder why I'm not displaying a water skin. Oh, there it is. Cool. So I've got a water skin now and my potions hanging out on my back hip with Mura's preset. So why don't we do that? There you can see the potions. Yeah, I'm digging the look.
Here we go.
So yeah, I think somebody had a question on, okay, well, how do I streamline everything to get the most out of my system and the most out of my game? And so that's what I kind of went over step by step. What I did anyway. And also how to set up process lasso. I mean, you can do it through Skyrim priority, but that only handles Skyrim. And what I did was I basically did it for all processes on my system that were running while I was trying to run Skyrim. And I left a couple of cores specifically for Skyrim that other processes wouldn't use. So Skyrim could have 2 cores completely to itself. And that did help the frame rate. So little things like that. But I think the main thing to take away from it is how to figure out where your bottleneck is. Because that's what's going to help people the most, is being able to figure out, okay, where's my bottleneck? How do I relieve that? There was a couple other things I got for Sunhelm too. There was actually like 5 different mods that I ended up installing with Sunhelm. So I think one of them was Worm's Tooth patch, so that it would apply to Worm's Tooth area, and then the eating sounds and animations patch. The one that allows you to have an MCM menu. So that's 3 of them. Sunhelm itself. And I think there was one more. So yeah, I went comprehensive.
Focus.
Gonna eat my arrow. You're not taking a whole lot of damage.
Mistake, you rat. Real smooth moves there.
Oh, now they're
Yes.
killing me. Killing me. Hide around the corner, heal up. Yeah, I have a lot of patches. But a lot of them are for mods like Lux and JK's interiors. You know. So they're small. So really when you think about 1,000 mods, it's not about the number, it's about what they're doing, right? Some people say, "Oh, I've got, 3,000 mods installed." Yeah, but, 2,000 of them are patches, so things work nice together.
Ready. You can do better than that. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that supposed... Got me good!
Get out of sneak mode, girl.
that a hit? Your technique is lacking, like the bite of a flea.
Why are you in sneak mode? We're stuck in sneak mode.
Surrender, or don't. You're dead either way.
I don't know why we're stuck in sneak mode. We're hating life, though. What am I doing? I did a tutorial earlier. And now we're trying to get Grim Sever for Mule. Okay, now we're out of sneak mode. Let's go get this warmonger up here. Where you at, buddy?
Yeah!
You die, she dies, everybody dies. Big. No
Should
hair.
be simple, really.
Wasn't any way I was going to walk around here with my dork hanging out. Wow. It's like something right out of the 10 Commandments. Bula tech. Bula tech. Does anybody have any idea what I'm talking about? Well, then, wipe it and start over. Build slow. I mean, that's something that I would probably have a problem with too. I'd want to, like, okay, I know all these mods work together, and I would install, you know,
Out of sight,
400
out
mods
of mind.
before I ever started the game up. And that would be a problem, right? Because although they're working together now, what patches did I make? What changes? What order were they loaded in? That's all the important stuff. Well, I got to think about, okay, this mod list that I'm working with here, I've been working on it for 2 years, and I'm still working on it. But I couldn't, and that's something
Shouldn't be
that,
too difficult.
when I finally get this to the point where it won't play, which it'll happen eventually, and I have to start over with MO2. When I rebuild this, it won't be the same. Because mods will have gotten updated or changed, things like that. For example, I'm still running the old version of, I wonder if that chain moves. No. Let's try this.
Totally hidden. I hope.
Should have movable chains.
Smooth moves.
Hey, that one's got physics. Cool. All right. Just had to do that. But yeah, the natural waterfalls, that's what I was talking about. I'm using the first version of that came out along with my patch for the fish. Because I tried updating it to the one where he combined everything, and it didn't work right. It didn't look right. So I went back to the original one, and I haven't updated it since. The chain tickles your immersion bone. Yeah, movable chains is a cool mod. That's the big bad guy. Put a power shot right in your chest. That didn't do any damage at all. That one did some damage. That did some damage. Oh, we're going to drop it. Cool. Climb on up, see what we got over here. A little bit of oil. A little bit of Earl. All I need is a pair of boots. I like the SMP chains. I like SMP wind. I like SMP period. A little bit of jiggle. It's all good. It's all right. Have a good time. 'Cause it's all right. Lambus bread. Who doesn't? I think everybody does. You lack the required item. Oh, that's just wrong. We do have some cool greatsword animations. So let's grab Grimsever. Really swinging that around like it's got some weight. And a great sword should have some weight to it. Oh, I hear you, Wolfie. Uh, hmm. Well, we want a hood. We're not cold yet, but we will be cold soon. Because it's cold up here. That's Messinja left. Okay. Tighties. Titties. The last day I'll be able to join you during this daytime. All right. Well, then you'll be catching Ireshot's stream because he's on later. Or you know, if I stream late after Ireshot, which I do sometimes. Are we crashing? Oh my God, really? All right. Well, how long were we going? 1 hour, 42 minutes. Don't you dare say fire. World root camera. And it's giving me the bad mesh thing. Road straight. Well, shader accumulator. Road straight O2. It's mentioning that an awful lot. I need to check on that. I'll be right back. Such a good dog. She let me know. That was the package I was waiting for that I had to sign for. So we're looking at culling process. So lighting issue, shader accumulator, shader property. For road straight O2. So that's what we want to look at. Copy. Let's go to road straight O2. We can actually get rid of this. Delete. Data, meshes, search, paste. Show me. There's road straight O2. Let's see open file location. Let's take a look at it. It was installed 5/28/2022. So we're looking at this piece of road. Looks like it's part of blended roads. And it would be a shader property. It says default, specular receive, own emit, decal, dynamic decal, Z buffer. Okay, that doesn't look bad. No fade. Environment map, light fade. What's the other shader property we have here? Is also default. That is a vertex alpha and vertex colors. So it may be the vertex colors that are an issue with that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to run this folder, data, meshes, landscape, roads. We're going to run that through Cathedral Assets Optimizer. And then we're going to take a look at synthesis. So IRShot, if you're interested in synthesis, I'm going to run that. And it's got a vertex color remover that you can get for it. That's not what I wanted to open. I'm getting all turned around. I don't know which way is up. Which way am I going? Modding tools. Cathedral. Gonna grab that. We're gonna grab Open Directory. Yee. And we're gonna go to Data, Meshes, Landscape, Roads. So Data, Meshes, Landscape. We gotta get down here to L, 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 L. Show me landscape. Load screens. Oh, J load screens. Landscape, roads. Select the folder. It's going to say that. I'm going to say yes. We're going to run it. We're done. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to open synthesis. So if we go to our modding tools, this is synthesis. It looks like a little mushroom. And we have ENB light patcher. Water does damage. That's another really good one. We're looking for another repository though for the vertex color. Okay, we don't have that. So we want the one for vertex color. Where's the group repository? Remove landscape vertex color. That one. And we want to add it. So now we have the ENB light patcher, water does damage, and remove landscape vertex color. So now we want to, we should want to run this. Enable all groups. It's preparing. Once it's done preparing, this should light up and we should be able to click that. So while it's doing that, I'm going to go get some coffee and then it'll run synthesis and it'll patch all of our plugins and everything for ENB light and for water does damage. And water does damage is important because it'll make all water sources available for you to harvest for things like Sunhelm and or I need. And then removing the vertex colors on landscape, that I looked at that mesh, right, for the piece of road, and it had vertex colors in it. So I want to remove that because that might be the reason why it crashed the shader on the game. Dodge and doggos. So the repositories are on GitHub. It says it's still working on it. Can we grab that? Because yeah, it's still preparing. Hmm. I'm looking at the top screen here. That's what I'm looking at. It's on GitHub. So it updated the dependencies, maybe restored synthesis. Maybe I can try that. Hello, synthesis. Calling synthesis. So this shouldn't be anything here. All right, you're not starting. Now you're loading. There you are. It says blocking error. Okay. Versioning. So it says there's a blocking error on that. So that's giving me a blocking error. So let's get rid of that. And let's search it by group, huh? Still giving me a blocking error. And not working. All right, I'm looking for AI stealth overhaul, aim zoom patcher, yada yada yada. I'm looking for vertex color. U water does damage. So I don't see a vertex color here. Match for vertex plugin. So it's right there. Remove landscape vertex color. Yeah. That's the one I want. Add patcher. And it's giving me a blocking error. So that's probably why I didn't run it. Landscape grid CS4223 error. Type of namespace PU or P3 does not exist. Nogog. Are you missing an assembly reference? Well, can I auto do it? No. What about the commit? No. Can I find the latest mutagen and the latest synthesis? It says compiling. Let's see what it'll do. Basically, these are repositories that are on GitHub, and you can, I'm wondering if there's a so this is telling me this is the main one that I wanted. Water does damage. But this is the one I would like to get right now. Remove the landscape vertex. It says it's processing, compiling. So it's trying to compile it from the latest version. And once it's done, I should be able to run it, and it should make a patch and remove the vertex colors from landscape meshes. The water does damage thing, like I said, is for like I need or any other mod that's going to have you adding water to water skins. The water needs to be flagged as does damage. So it'll go through and put those flags on. It's basically a patcher. It's an auto patcher. And people can write scripts to find and patch things that are available on GitHub for free. So like while this is doing it, I mean, I can go to the repository and I can find a variety of containers, patcher, forward. So we can look at other things. Material swaps, AVSC, containers, action speed, patcher, AI stealth overhaul, configurable enemy AI stealth, behavior overhaul, alternative to realistic AI detection. So there's things like that that you can get here. And they'll list all the ones that are available. But some of them, custom set test, custom set, you have no idea what the heck's in there. So you're looking for specific, and will this code actually work? Maybe, maybe not, right? Maybe it's still a work in progress. And I think that's the thing with this one, is that it may still be a work in progress. Yeah, it's taking an awful long time to process though. So we're going to turn that one off, and then we're going to run everything else. So as you can see what it looks like when it's patching. It's basically just doing these two. But I have a pretty big mod list too. All right, get yourself some popcorn, sit back, relax, check out the nice statue from Managora Sprouts there. That's a kind. She's in the temple by JK. Oh, there we go. That's what I want to see. Now it's doing something. So now it's running, and now it says completed. So that's basically how you make a patch. We can turn that back on, and that says it's compiling. You already got yourself some popcorn? Cool, Gears. Does it have that movie butter on it, or is it just regular old popcorn? So this is the repository, right? This is the code. So it looks like we have a debug and a release version. Everything on commit. Can we run it? No, it's compiling. That is just taking a really long time to compile. Let's dump that on our desktop. See if we can do it that way. Duplicate patcher name, give the patcher a unique name. Okay. Or we can turn that off and delete that one. And then open that one. So it's giving me a blocking error.